One thing I really missed since the pandemic began was the opportunity to go out to an open mic and sit down with other songwriters to discuss songwriting, the craft and the process by which we do this. I found an alternative and we're going to talk about it today, so do stick around. Welcome to Charlie's Open Mic. My name is Charlie Mosbrook. On today's show, we're going to meet up with a songwriter I met in a virtual songwriting group on Zoom. Her name is Narissa Bond. I really loved her songs. We're going to talk about songwriting, we're going to talk about other things, and we're going to listen to her music, so let's do that now.
Driving east across Missouri to the edge of Little Dixie, through Lafayette County, past Arrow Rock, south of Kingdom City, about 1850, begins a story I will tell you. At 14 years old, Celia was bought and sold to a man named Robert Newsom. She would be worth her weight in gold on the long ride home. No one could hear her cries. Robert Newsom took her against her will before they reached the next county. Celia was a young girl, Celia was afraid. No one heard the cries of a young slave. She was the property of a man with the power in his hands. For the slave there was no law or refuge in this land. Years went by, Celia waited and bided her time. Through those years there was evidence of the master's crime. Light brown children she bore, she had never known the touch of love, only the master's will. Still she prayed to the heavens above. Celia was a young girl, Celia grew strong. Celia vowed one day she'd take the master down. She was the property of a man with the power in his hands. For the slave there was no law or refuge in this land. Master came to Celia's door like he had so many times before. When he demanded her favors, Celia said no. Well, he stormed into the room, shadows cast by the fire in the light of the moon. With a stick she struck him on the head. The old man fell to the floor dead. Celia was a young girl, no longer afraid. She did as she had promised. For freedom she had prayed. From being the property of a man, she took the power from his hands. And for the slave there was no law or refuge in this land. In Callaway County on a December afternoon, a young woman's life ended too soon. At the gallows her spirit rose above the trees and the life she'd known. singing freedom from this time and place, freedom from the master's chains, freedom from a life of shame. Singing freedom from this time and place, freedom from the master's chains, freedom from a life of shame. Oh, freedom.
If you appreciate this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please ring the bell for notifications. Always click like and comment down below if you got something good to say. And you can find us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find our Patreon link to help support the show. On today's show, we have Narissa Bond. She's a singer-songwriter out of Norfolk, Virginia. She's a storyteller. She's an award-winning songwriter, and we're going to learn more about that. I met her at a songwriting gathering on Zoom. But first, let's just get to know Narissa a little bit more. Welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Good to see you. So how did folk music find you?
I don't know. I grew up listening. My father was a musician, and we listened to everything. And I think the first folk group that I ever listened to was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like my favorite thing until I started hearing musicians of the civil rights era, like Odetta and people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and I always wanted to play guitar. So everybody played guitar back then, and everybody plays guitar now, but I wanted to play. And so as soon as I was big enough, my family, they bought me my first guitar. And I started playing folk music with a college teacher. It was one of my dad's students who played folk music.
Did you go to college for classical and jazz, or did you study that at some point?
I studied it, but I didn't go to college for it. I actually studied visual arts in college. So I have a degree in visual arts and fine arts. So I studied jazz at the Charlie Parker Foundation in Kansas City, and I studied classical music before that and after that.
Songwriting groups. Do you take part in a lot of different songwriting groups? Had you prior to the pandemic, or is this something you've added on?
Well, when I was living in Kansas City, we both have a friend in common, David Haken. And David and me and a couple of other people, we were kind of the first of the songwriting group in Kansas City. It was David Haken's idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined that group, and we had a lot of activities. And we met at least once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, working on songs and sharing what we were creating, and in different places around town. And I got back into it during the pandemic.
I really took a lot away from that, and really want to get involved in more songwriting groups like that.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a lot of fun. And it's great meeting people around the country. You don't get a chance to do that in your own hometown.
Speaking of your own hometown and speaking of your own songs, let's talk a little bit about I Live Here Too.
When I was living in the Midwest, I had just seen, I just heard Alice Walker speaking, and she talked about, the different tribes, that we live with. And so for me, I'm a woman, I'm Black, I'm a lesbian, so there are all of those different aspects of myself. And I was thinking about that as I left her place, and the place where she was speaking, which was I believe it was the Unity Church in Kansas City. And I was thinking about the fact that there was a group of people that were protesting, and they were protesting pretty much everything that I am. And I thought about how there's so many different people in this country who are marginalized, and I thought about how we work here, we contribute to society, we pay taxes, and we have a right to equal rights, just like anyone else. And we deserve to live in this country and not be discriminated against. And that protest was nothing but discrimination. It was the Fred Phelps. Fred Phelps group of children carrying hate signs. It was the saddest thing I had ever seen. It just broke my heart, and I went home and I wrote that song, and it came to me very, very quickly. And it includes people that other people that are marginalized in society. It covers a lot of ground, not all ground, but it represents. The song represents all people that are marginalized in the society, and how we all have a right to be here, and we contribute to the society.
So on your website, it begins by talking about your bio begins talking about your mother urging you to tell family stories. Uh, One of those family stories is told here, and it takes place in Berea, Kentucky.
Berea College was one of the first integrated colleges in the country. And so my great grandfather, who was born a slave, was emancipated when he was like 4. And his mother went back to work for the original family that owned her. And she was able to buy land, livestock, and she was able to send him to college. So by the time he was 16, she sent him down the road to Berea College from where she was living, and he paid for his tuition with a cow.
Wow.
And that's how he went to college. And he became part of the board of Berea. And Berea went through a lot of different changes. There was a period of time where black and white students couldn't go to school in the same room, and so they made separate facilities. But the college is still there. And I was able to go and play there several years back. And everybody knew about my great grandfather. Yeah.
Amazing history.
Mhm.
Tell me about Celia. That's a song you won an award for?
Yes, I actually won an award at the Bluegrass Festival in Kansas. The song is about it's a true story about a young woman who was purchased for the purpose of being, well, the mistress. I guess that's a nice way of saying, for a slave owner named Robert Newsom. And the first time that I heard about the story was in a book by Melton McLaurin, and the book is called Celia, a Slave.
Hmm.
So Melton McLaurin put together a story from the court documents. Some of the story is accurate, and some of it is just speculation. And so I put together the best story that I could come up with from that book. But since writing that story about Celia, I have met people around the country who have written screenplays, plays, and there is a brilliant scholar at Columbia University named Tracy Cleeclamp who has been writing narratives. She's been interviewing the descendants of Celia, both the descendants of Celia and the descendants of the slave owner. And I think her information is probably the most accurate to date. And I've had the pleasure of meeting her last year, and I had the pleasure of going and playing the song Celia at a commemoration of her life this past December. So the story basically is that she's purchased for the purpose of not really being a part of the regular. And she works and she does all of that, but she is purchased for the purpose of being the mistress to the slave owner. And the song tells more about the story, which I'll share with you. But she, after a period of time, she's actually brutalized by the slave owner on a regular basis, and she has children by him. She kills him. She murders him. And she is tried for the murder, and then she is executed. But there were 2 lawyers that defended her, And I had the pleasure of working with the great granddaughter of one of the lawyers that defended her. But they didn't have a leg to stand on because she wasn't considered a human being. She was considered property, and so therefore she was not. They were not able to defend her from the execution.
Difficult history that we have here in this country that we're dealing with and reckoning with right now, aren't we?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. But it's interesting history, and I
Hmm.
think that the town actually has the book in their Chamber of Commerce. They have a case where they put artifacts from the past, and that book is actually in that case at the Chamber of Commerce. So people, I don't know that they're proud of the history, but they have embraced certain truths, which I think is a good thing.
I also wanted to talk to you about, you had talked about banjo, and I see the banjo over your shoulder there.
I love banjo. I'm one of those people that I hear parts in my head, and then I grab an instrument and play those parts. But I think that I would like to be a much better banjo player. I actually play banjo on the song "The Road to Berea" on
Hmm.
the in the album. I heard some parts, and I just decided to lay those down, and I think it turned out pretty good. But it's a work in progress, learning to play and reclaiming banjo.
What tradition of the banjo have you been working on?
I'm a finger picker. I do some strumming and all of that. So I'd really like to work on claw hammer,
Hmm.
but my go-to is always some type of finger picking. So maybe I'll be able to combine a couple of different styles. But claw hammer is what I'd like to become proficient in because most of the songs that I'd like to learn are claw hammer style.
You want to tell us a little history of the banjo?
It's an African instrument, and a lot of people don't know that. I worked for Colonial Williamsburg for a while, and I did a project with the African American programming, and
Hmm.
we did an album. And I was just one of the singers on the group, but I was first introduced to the gourd banjo, and it's really neat. And I actually have a friend that makes them, and her name is Dina Ross Jennings, and she's in Northern Virginia, and she grows the gourds and she actually makes them. I really want one of those gourd banjos because
Hmm.
it has a lot of character, and it's based on African traditions.
My
I
fingers.
sometimes think that music, if you look at different parts of the world, people are writing from their environment. It's like there's a certain rhythm and a certain melody to the land that we live on,
Hmm.
and that is when I'm inspired the most.
As a songwriter, I don't really feel like isolation is a terrible thing for me. As a matter of fact, some of my best music was written during long periods of isolation. These times of loneliness, I like to use songwriting as a tool to process what I'm going through, to try to figure out who I am, to try to maybe figure out who you are, to understand the world a little better, to laugh, to cry, to do whatever the song brings me to. And I really find that time of loneliness and that isolation helps me to really dig in and to find these answers a little more clearly. That said, songwriting doesn't stop there. It's still a craft, it's an art form. And I find being able to bounce my ideas off of other good songwriters, people who love the craft and really have studied it and want to understand it and write better songs, being able to share my ideas with them, take a little criticism, give a little criticism, is really a helpful tool in helping me to write a better song. And with that, I want to encourage anybody who's interested in furthering their craft as a songwriter to take part in some of these virtual communities. If you're unsure where to find songwriting groups, I would just get on the social media and just put the question out there and see who answers. They could be from anywhere in the world because we're doing it virtually. It means that the world's open to whoever we want to work with, whoever wants to work with us. So give it a shot and join some groups and get out of your own isolation for a little while and share a little songwriting with some other friends. I'm going to share a little songwriting with you, so here's a song of mine. Well, and now I fly above your mountain, so high above your trees, and spread my wings into your wind and let my soul go free. And I was moving across the sand, my soul was sailing out there with nowhere left to land. Well, and now I fly above your mountain, so high above your trees, and spread my wings into your wind and let my soul go free. And I was flying across the sky, my soul is sailing out there, nowhere left to hide. Well, and now I fly above your mountain, so high above your trees, and spread my wings into your wind and let my soul go free. Let my soul go free, I will let my soul go free. The war behind me, it was surreal. The pain inside of our souls was all that I could feel. And now I fly above your mountain, so high above your trees, and spread my wings into your wind, and now I'll let my soul go free. Gonna let my soul go free, I will let my soul go free. Thanks for watching Charlie's Open Mic this week, and thank you to Narissa Bond for dropping in and sharing a little conversation and song. As always, please click the subscription link down below. Please ring the bell for notifications of upcoming episodes. Please click like and comment down below. Let us know what you're up to, and you can always find us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find our Patreon link to help support the show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.